Now we're back and we're going to go after one of the areas of the game, one of the optional areas of the game, which is the haunted castle. The place is especially difficult because of its basement, which is filled with lord's slaves, who are just guards, but with a changed name. Before doing that, I'm going to become an expert in throwing. Since I will need all the help I can get to pass through the area, I'm going to go ahead and start using my Molotov cocktails more efficiently. For that, I'm going to raise it to level 3. Yes, I'm going to raise it to level 3. Spend 4 points, but... No, sorry, just to level 2. And of course, one of the expert trainers of throwing around here is a very rude halfling, which I confused with the halfling I saved. This halfling also offers you several quests about menial tasks like killing the pigs that are plaguing his fields and carrying rocks to the cart beside him. They are incredibly mundane, and frankly they don't give that much experience anyways. Now then, I believe that I'm going to increase my dexterity to 12 now. I don't know, I've recorded this a while ago, but yes, indeed I did. Now we can go back to Blackroot and actually get the quest to become a throwing master. Well, it's not a terribly difficult quest, but we'll get there when we get there. For now, let's concentrate on the haunted castle. It's frankly quite a painful area. It's mainly painful because it's long. It has great music though, but it's deceptive. The difficulty curve rises completely out of nowhere. So for today I'm going to talk about something that has many new players confused. How the hell critical hits work? This game has got two main paths, if you can call them, technological and magical. So we have to specify which way of dealing damage we want for our characters, unless you're playing a diplomatic pacifist character, in which case this won't be for you. But for everyone else that wants to know how the game calculates the critical chances, critical hits, critical success, well, this is the episode for you. First of all, excuse me, I'm a little bit sick right now. Well, first of all, let's talk about critical failures. There are 3 independent rolls that have to be made on each hit that is being done, which are dependent first of all on your skill with the appropriate weapon. The base failure is 1/7 of your skill. Therefore, the lower your skill, the more likely you are to fail critically. But it decreases to a flat 2%. This 2% is quite an important number. Please remember it for later. Second of all, there's the one-way affinity and difficulty of the object. Well, let it be magical affinity or technological complexity. For this video, I'll be referring only to technological affinity. Now then, the one-way critical failure, which is the second critical failure roll, will be dependent on your affinity versus complexity. Imagine if you are a technological oriented character and have got an item that is of 10 magical aptitude, then your failure will be of a 2% chance. Now the next one will be now imagine if your technological aptitude raises to 20, while the magical aptitude needed for the use of the object is 40, the critical chance will grow to an 8%. Now let's make a little jump. If your technological aptitude is 70% and the magical aptitude needed for the item is 90, then it will be a whopping 63% critical failure chance of critical failure. And finally, if you're a technologist like us with a 100% technological aptitude and the item in question requires a magical aptitude of 90, then it will be a 90% critical chance, chance of failure. So let's recap. First of all, if we have no idea how to use the weapon in question, we will get a 1/7 of our chance to hit, which will be already high enough because we have no idea how to use it. So let's say, for example, okay, let's bypass this for a second. We train our character in we train our, I don't know, our technologist in casting spells, because why not? This, or in using a magical sword. Yes, that makes more sense. Our character is an experienced swordsman, but the sword is magical in nature. Well, then again, the critical chance for his skill will be at 2%. This will be the first roll. 98% of successful. It's easily beatable. Second roll, he is an expert technologist, and the sword is incredibly magical. He has to pass a second chance of not making a critical failure of 90%. And finally, there's the third critical failure roll, which is a two-way item. Now that will be the magical aptitude of the target. Now say for example that we have a target whose technological aptitude is really, really high. And say for example that you are a character that is using a magical item with a very, very high technological aptitude as well. The technological aptitude is a way to protect yourself from the opposite element. In other ways, if a mage is attacking you, a mage with 100%, a mage with 10%, a mage with 10% magical aptitude, and you have 100% technological aptitude, it will be around 6% critical failure for the mage. Now imagine that you are a swordsman with a magical sword, and you're trying to attack a technologist with a rifle. The technologist if the technologist and you as well have got an affinity, if he has got a 10% magical affinity and you have got a 10% technological affinity, it will be just 9% failure. It can be easily done. It can be easily surpassed. But if he has got a 75% technological affinity and you have got a 75% technological affinity and you're using a magical sword, your chance of failure skyrockets to a whopping 19%. Now imagine if it's the other case. You have got a magical creature with a magical aptitude of 25. Now imagine that you are a technologist with a 75% technological. You have got a 75% technological aptitude. Then again, what will be the penalty cost here? A 55% skill check that you have to pass necessarily. So let's recap again. You have got a magical swordsman, a magical technological swordsman with a magical sword. First skill check, 2%, easily beatable. Second skill check, 90% of failure. Okay, let's pretend that we can beat it. And a third skill check of a 55% failure against a magical creature. This game really tells you to pick a choice and stick with it. Do not play the middle ground. Mainly because magical creatures get a bonus defense to other against magic, and so do technologists. Technologists get benefits against bullets, against hell, they have even defense against napalm. Now then, let's save and let's even talk that you have decided to go berserk. You're a suicidal person, a madman that decides to play completely illogically. Fine, if you can live with all those critical failures. Well then, let's talk about what will be the efficiency of the item in question. Now let's make again a hypothetical case where you have an item that you are skilled, your skill is 30, and the complexity of the item you have in your hands requires you a skill check of 50 to use it at full capacity. This is nothing new. The items are powerful in their own ways. So the game actually checks the penalty of your lack of skill. In other words, if the complexity is 50 and your skill is 30, the difference will be 20. That's a 20%. Half of the difference will be 10%. That 10% is subtracted to the skill check of the item of 50, which will be 40%. 40% divided by the skill check of the item, 50 will be 80%. Therefore, you will be only using the bonuses of the item and the damage done by it. You'll be only using it at 80% capacity. So there you go. This is the same reason why you will never find archmages with machine guns, and why we will never be using spell scrolls, which will, for seasoned veterans of the game, this may seem like we may lose a character sometime in the future, but trust me, there are ways around it. So let's not be pessimistic before it happens. Now, since we have talked about critical failures, let's talk about critical successes. First of all, let's talk about damage. There are five types of damage that can be done in this game. The first of all, cutting, crushing, impaling, electrical, and fire damage. You're going to ask me, oh, I've seen water elementals around. What do water elementals do? Well, water elementals do impaling damage. Impaling damage if they cast an ice storm, or crushing damage if water elementals decides to punch you. Crushing damage has got a significant advantage over cutting and impaling. And before you ask, yes, bullets do impaling damage. So do arrows and most of the ranged weapons. Now, what is the critical chance of success, you ask me? It is a flat 5%, like in every single D20 game ever. 5% of your skill chance. What is your skill chance? The skill chance is the little number that appears whenever I highlight an enemy, which is why right now it's in the 170s. Let's say that until right now, that's the problem. Right now my character Charlotte has got about 5 points in strength, and she's using a machine guns, which requires at least 12 points in strength to be used efficiently. So it should be in the 200s right now. But well, given the strength penalties that I suffer, it cannot be bypassed until much later in the game. Now then, let's talk about critical chance. That 200%, which we calculate the 5% of that 175 to 8.75% every time I shoot my gun. of course, of all the mentioned negative effects of using the opposite, there are no positive effects of using items of your same nature. Well, of course there are, but it's logical, so it just means that the chance of critical failure is reduced to the flat 2% I mentioned earlier. I can still fail, of course I can still fail a shot, but it will just be a 2%, nothing major. We will not suffer greatly because of it. Now, on to the critical effects themselves. First of all, critical damage is regular damage. It just carries modifiers with themselves, which make the damage increased. What does this mean? It means that let's not forget that right now I'm using the basic shot. There's something that I haven't showed yet in the game, but it completely destroys the difficulty of it. It means it means that I can make, like in Fallout, guided shots. I can either target the head, the arm, or the legs. What does this mean? And with our skill in firearms and being the master, which gives a flat percentage, it's well, let's just say this: a guided shot to the head, a cold shot to the head, with my turns that 8.75% chance of a critical success into a 58.75% chance. So more than half of our shots will be critical shots. Now, what are the effects of a critical hit? First of all, the damage. You have got a 60% chance of doing plus 50% damage. You have got a 30% chance of dealing double damage, and a 10% chance of dealing triple damage. What about stunning, you ask? Well, stun is the second effect. It means that the enemy loses several turns. That has got a 5% base chance, but it has also got another 10% if it's a crushing attack, if it's an electrical attack, or if it is a headshot. So headshots already gives us a 15% chance of stunning. Another different role will be knockout. And of course, and finally there are crippled arms and blindness, which have got a 1% base chance plus 10% if the shot is cold. So all stunning, knockout and crippling have got a constitution defense roll, which is 5 times your constitution minus a 25%. And unfortunately, undead cannot be knocked out or crippled arms or legs. Creatures without arms or legs, like birds or dragons, cannot be crippled. Here's the boss, and here's one of the most difficult fights of the game. The only strategy I've got for here is to have Jaina. Well, it's to save, of course, because I have to redo 3 or 4 times this fight 3 or 4 times. Tell Jaina to wait, because she will always get ripped to pieces by the guards. Try to get as much distance as you can and start throwing Molotov cocktails. But most importantly, let's just say, for example, that I decided to do this fight only with headshots. Doing that will imply that I have, first of all, with every time I shoot my gun, I have 58% of doing a critical hit. And that critical hit can do increased damage, a 15% chance of stunning, another 15% chance of knocking someone out, and another 15% chance of blinding target. All of those effects can happen. Of course, if anyone wants to know why the gore guards damage the armor, it's because they do fire damage. Fire attacks always damage your armor. Yes. For some reason, I really should have cut that out. Well, I just left it in there just to show what the gore guards can do. They can absolutely decimate your party. Now then, well, anyways, back to the hypothetical back to the hypothetical cases that were studied. The reason why I do not use called shots or guided shots or whatever they are called, it's because they would absolutely wreck the soul. They would absolutely wreck the difficulty of the game, which is not to say that which again, I'm playing on the easier setting, which makes the characters, which makes the enemies do 25% less damage, and also again 25% more experience. But the percentages for the critical shots and the hit chance remains intact. Now then, I really should have cut those parts out. I'm really sorry, but I just want to show that the most difficult part of this fight are the Lord Slaves. They do fire damage, and fire damage always damages your armor. The important thing is to keep them away from you at all costs, because they have 18 points in dexterity. 18 points in dexterity for a melee character means about from 5 to 7 hits. Each hit will be modified by their strength, which is also at 18. Therefore, and they can do 15 to 25 regular damage with an additional 15 to 20 fire damage, which can damage your armor. And yes, this is why I wanted explosives. They are the only way I can win this fight. And surprisingly, the Lord of the Damned, although it's a special enemy, it has absolutely no spells whatsoever, which I find hilarious, because the Dragon Pool we saw before have got lesser leeches, which have at least lightning bolt with them. Now then, with all of this done, the next video we will actually progress with some plot.